This interview was carried out as part of my video, The Indie Dev Cheat Code, about the double threat approach of being an indie developer and a content creator together. If you find this video interesting, be sure to check out the main video and the other interviews. And of course, show the devs some love. They earned it.
I've broke these up into three sections, like this content creator question, indie question, and then combined. The whole point is just I'm trying to build a case that being a content creator and an indie dev together is like a power combo. It's potentially one of the best ways to go about it, which is one of the reasons why I asked like Irish John on, because he's gone the indie dev route, and Hillthought because he's come from AAA and's got experience, the publisher route, sorry, and Hillthought's got experience in AAA. So I'm trying to get a range of perspectives. You're my content creator ringer because you've managed to turn content creation into like a full-time job, even if it doesn't pay as much as you like. So first question is, do you make a point of carving out time for... Sorry, I'll just preface. I know the answer to a lot of these questions, but obviously it's for the video. Do you make a point of carving out time for content? Or is it like, does it take second backseat to the game development stuff?
So I would say right now, the content stuff is really what pays the bills because I am working on a big project. So I know that I have to kind of do the content stuff to finance my game development goals. So that's something that I have to do. But I think in general, the hardest thing for me is just like switching between both, because I feel like they use different parts of my brain. Yeah.
Do you put like a lot of thought into your brand when you're making content? Like, do you even think about brands?
I do definitely think about brands, but do I put a lot of thought in? I mean, it's kind of like my brand is me, but also like a amped up version of me.
An excited version.
Yeah, everything is exciting version of me. I mean, like I have a YouTube voice. That was sort of like a conclusion that I came to, is like, if I'm not excited about this, why should anybody else be? So I think that's a reason a lot of YouTubers do like the YouTube voice, is because it's like, it's exciting. Be excited. Watch this thing. Yeah.
Some people's YouTube voices are better than others, though.
I think I do think I watch pro wrestling. I hate to admit it, but I feel like there's a lot of parallels between content creation and that, because I've heard a lot of wrestlers talk about being like amped up versions of themselves. Like it's themselves, but it's them cranked up to 11.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You might be the first person I've ever heard make that comparison, though. YouTube, it's a lot like pro wrestling. So some YouTubers go through a full script writing process. Others just like hit the stream button and then edit the VOD later. Do you think one of those is better than the other? Do you have like, where do you fall on that spectrum? Do you do both? None of the above?
So most of the time I have a script. I kind of do, there's sort of like two different content veins that I have. So there's I have this idea and I want to make this video. And then there's, because I kind of swap between devlogs for the game that I'm making, and then there's also like one-off projects that are just sort of like interesting thought projects. So those are typically like, I kind of have an idea of the video that I want to make, and I make a game that makes a good video, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That I think will, because that's the reason for it. A lot of times there's like IP that I take from like Nintendo or whatever, so I can't like release the game as a product, but it does well in a video, so it makes sense from that perspective. And I don't know why, but I guess it's kind of okay to steal IP if it's just for video.
Does it count as for content?
Yeah, just for, as long as it's for content. And then for devlogs, it's kind of like I have to focus on making my game, right? Because when I first started the channel, I would just make interesting videos for like using the game. And that's just not good for game development, to work that way. So now I'm sort of like, okay, I've developed this stuff. How do I package it into a video that I think will be interesting? Because a lot of game development isn't that exciting. And so you have to just present it in a way that is interesting and fun for people.
Makes sense. Do you see the various platforms as like super distinct from each other, like YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, wherever the hell else you post all your stuff? Like, do you treat them completely different? I mean, obviously, I know you treat Twitch differently, but like, do you treat TikTok differently? Do you even use TikTok? Do you treat Instagram differently, or is it just a case of here's a short that I made for YouTube, I'm just going to upload it to all these other places as well?
So currently I only really focus on YouTube. For a little bit, I did try TikTok just because I made shorts and I posted them on TikTok and YouTube, but they didn't seem to really perform on TikTok, maybe because I don't have an established audience there. But, yeah, so I was just like, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of effort to post. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's worth the effort to post this on TikTok because it gets, 200 views or whatever. And I have this whole issue with getting stuff on my phone and then uploading it to TikTok. I don't think you can upload on web. So I was just like, it's not really worth the hassle. But I do think, just to answer your question, I do think the platforms are pretty distinct. Maybe not in terms of like, I don't know what it is, but I know that the content that's on TikTok is like slightly different. People expect something different than what is on YouTube Shorts. And I don't know why that is. At least in the game dev niche, I think people expect different things. Maybe it's a different audience. But yeah.
Just as a slight aside, you can actually upload through the web now. Obviously, it wasn't always the case, but you can now.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Good to know. When I was talking to Polymars the other day, he was like, yeah, you should just upload on TikTok. And I was like, maybe. But he said I guess the CPM on there is way higher.
I found it hard to, like, everybody seems to hit this thing where you get either 200 or 700 views. It's always those two numbers, like 250 or 275 or something, or 750. And then you'll get specific ads that are like, are you stuck at 750 views? Then you need TikTok marketing, advertising, basically.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So where did we get to now? All right.
I'm big in the Philippines.
Do you try and take advantage of trends on YouTube or whatever platforms you upload on?
I have tried in the past. It doesn't always work. It kind of like when Wordle was big, however many years ago that was, I tried getting something out for that. And it didn't really take off. My channel was much smaller at the time, but I do think that there's like a benefit to that, and there's a downside to that. If you go viral, then it's great, but if you don't, then you don't really have like a way to build your channel from that, because it's a trend. So it'll eventually not be a thing anymore.
Makes sense. So anyone who's on YouTube knows about how the comments can be from time to time. How do you deal with negative engagement?
I think I've actually gotten, like a year ago, for some reason, it really bothered me when people were negative. I actually wrote a script to turn off the comments on the YouTube homepage for myself in the YouTube studio. So it just like deletes them, so I can't even see them. But I feel like I've gotten better with it over time. Maybe because it's just been so persistently negative. Yeah, I was talking with my wife about this yesterday. It was like, I think like being the brunt of a joke or like people pointing something out, I think is always okay with me as long as I know it's coming. It's like when it sort of blindsides you, it's like, oh, ow. You know what I mean? But there's been enough things that I've heard. I've been doing this sort of long enough that I think I've gotten more used to it.
So basically,
but it's easy to dwell on something when someone says something that sort of like touches a sore spot. Maybe something you feel insecure about or something. But
so if you want to take you down, you've got to come up with something that's not been said before. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that I feel insecure about. Yeah.
And on that note, what would you say the hardest part about being a content creator is?
For myself or just in general?
Either or, however you want to answer that question.
I think in general, because I've been doing this for a little bit, I think in general consistency is the hardest thing. Because there's ups and downs to the whole thing, and you just have to sort of keep going. And there's a big unknown with that, especially if it's not paying. If it's not doing well, but you have to keep going. And you're like, when will it? How close are you to it flipping to being good again, or is it 5 years? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 months? You don't really know.
Yeah, and consistency is not just time, is it? It's also the quality of the content needs to be consistent as well.
Yeah. And I do think, for me particularly, the hardest thing is just flipping between development and making videos. It's just different parts of my brain and switching gears to go from developing. Like I really love developing, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to develop games if nobody knows about them. That's why I even started a YouTube channel. So
the last content creator question, or the last one that focuses on content creation, if you could only improve one thing about your content creation side right now, and not just more views, like if you could only improve one thing that might lead to more views, what would it be?
We only improve one thing. I would say probably just maybe like frequency. My ability to just put out content more frequently.
Without it
I think in general that would help. What?
Without affecting the quality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so indie dev specific questions. I don't know why I put this one first. This feels like it should be a last question, but like, what's the hardest part about being an indie developer? Answering questions like this.
I think it's a little bit about managing expectations. Specifically being a solo indie developer, there's only so much that I can do during a day. And I think for most people, it's just a slow process. And I think for most people, they see something and they expect like over a certain amount of time that there's a certain amount of development. But game dev isn't a linear process. So like you could do something that it works really well, and then stuff changes, and then that thing doesn't work anymore, and you have to rework it. Or maybe you implement something and you think it's going to be good, and then it's not, so you have to change it. And so I think the expectation from a community or testers or whoever is that you have an idea, you go to the next idea, you go to the next idea, and it's just straight progress. But that's just not how it works. And I think managing people's expectation of that, especially if they're not game developers themselves, can be really difficult.
Makes sense. How important would you say technical ability is for an aspiring developer? Like, as in somebody who hasn't got much coding experience, or maybe even no coding experience, should they see that as a roadblock to them becoming a game developer?
I don't think so. Not at all. I think you can. The really cool thing about game dev is I think you can lean into your strengths. So if you're an artist, if you're a musician, if you're whatever, I think you can do that. It's easier. I think people get sort of discouraged by the programming side of things, but now there's visual scripting. Like you could do stuff in Scratch. There's ChatGPT. I know people hate that, but just like there's other options that, if you want to do something simple that leans into your strengths of music or art, that you could definitely do that. And I do think we tend to over-engineer our dream games in our head, that it's like, oh, I want to make this game and it's going to be a MMORPG. But I think if you start small and you're like, okay, well, here's my strength, it's music, and then you lean into that and keep a small scope, that is definitely, you can make games no matter if you have programming experience or not.
So on the subject of making games, there's loads of fairy tale stories out there. We've got like Five Nights at Freddy, Among Us, Balatro. They're the ones that I wrote down. Do you think games like this create unrealistic expectations, or they should be seen as like aspirational, motivational examples that somebody could reach themselves?
It's hard for me to say because I haven't released an indie game on my own to know sort of like, I worked on a game once that was free with a small team. That game did pretty well. And then, I released a game on Steam for free with another small team, but it was free. So there was a lot of downloads for it, but it was free. So it's like hard to measure how well that does. I do think the market in general is really saturated. And so there's just a lot of people making games, and there's a lot of games that are good. It's like a part of the reason I started YouTube was like, I have a audience that at least hopefully one person will play this. And I think that's sort of like the mentality, like why I even started a YouTube channel was, oh yeah, I think that as a solo indie dev, I need a way to communicate with people that gets them invested in what I'm doing. But I think in general, I do think people like you get into game dev and you're like, I'm going to make a lot of money from this. But I don't think that that's really the case. I think you have to be passionate about making games in order for it to work, whether you're making a lot of money or whether you're not.
So on the you mentioned about there being saturation and a lot of games out there. How important do you think it is, or if it even is it possible to have like a completely unique, never been done before idea if you want to stand out?
I do think that there's a lot of stuff that you could do that maybe isn't like mainstream. I think that's the benefit that indie devs have. But I don't necessarily think that you need to do something entirely unique to stand out. I think it could be a twist on an existing idea. Like for instance, like Pal World was Pokemon with guns, right? Like you could boil it down to that, and that's like a marketing strategy that like gets people like, oh, that seems kind of interesting. Just that alone gets people interested in it. So I don't think it doesn't necessarily need to be unique in terms of like completely brand new, but if people have something they can latch onto in like one or two words or phrases, I think that helps too.
Yeah. So second and last in this section, if money stopped being a concern, like if you didn't have to worry about paying the bills, if you had the money to cover all your expenses and everything, how different would your game development process look like? Would you still be working by yourself but just not stressing? Would you hire people? Would you would you stop content creating if you didn't need to fund the game development? Like what would you change, do you think?
Interesting. I think I would be doing what I'm doing currently, but at a different scale or maybe different pace. I'd be working with more people to help me do it more quickly, I think. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a team to always have someone like working on Mana Valley, and it would be cool to have like consistent editors for the YouTube channel, like someone to help with ideation for the YouTube channel, potentially have someone like working on games for the YouTube channel because I have lots of ideas, but the difficult part is I also have to make the game, which is a big time suck. So yeah, I think just having more people. I do know from having worked with people before that sometimes that is difficult. Like people have their own schedules and stuff like that, and yeah, personalities. So stuff.
Do you find it difficult to balance the creative and technical aspects of game development? I know you've already talked about you have like it feels like two different parts of your brain, and it's hard to switch. Do you find it hard to balance them? Like deciding when it is time to switch and when it is time to do one or the other?
I think so. I think it's mostly a discipline thing, but I have this thing in my head where I want to try to get out a video every month. And so yeah, just balancing them because I'm like, oh, I have this one more thing I want to get out for a patch for this for the playtesters, so that they're excited about the game. But I also need to make this video. So, yeah, it is something that I have trouble balancing. I don't know. Other than that, it's just like, yeah,
That's fine. Yeah, yes, it's fine. All right, that was the last content only. So the rest of them, we're on to the last section now. Flying through these. This was like combined about questions that cover not just focusing on one side or the other. Was the decision to become a content creator and an indie dev together like a conscious decision that you made, like as in one thing, or were you one or the other and then you decided to start doing the other?
okay. So this is kind of a loaded question, but
Sorry.
so I've been making YouTube videos since like YouTube started. Basically, there's videos on here somewhere of me lip syncing to like songs when I was in high school, which was like eons ago. So there's videos somewhere. So I've always been interested in making videos. I've done like different channels of doing tutorials of like 3D modeling. Just for context, my background is in architecture. So I went to college for architecture. And I was always interested in games. I just never really thought that I could do it. I didn't think I was smart enough. I thought it would be too competitive for me to get into. And so I just stuck with architecture. And then, what was the question? Sorry.
It's like, did you make a conscious decision to be a content creator, indie dev combo, or was it you were already doing one and you came to decide to do the other?
Okay. So fast forward a little bit. I started a business in architecture during COVID. It tanked. And I was like, well, it seems like people are sort of going into entertainment. Maybe, it makes sense for me to pivot into something. So I started learning game development, and then I joined a team as an artist, and then slowly started to learn like programming things. And I became a bridge between the artists and the programmers. And during that time, we sort of talked about me doing stuff for the YouTube channel because there was one for that company. And then there just wasn't a whole lot of time for me to do that while I was also developing. And then when I left there, I was like, oh, I don't have any sort of audience or anything, and I want to make games. So let me have my own YouTube channel, and I'll start to promote my own games so that when I finally release something, people might be interested in it. At least people will know about it.
Gotcha. So do you see one, or do you completely see one as a means to the other? So like in your case, do you see the YouTube channel entirely as a means to fund the game development, or does the YouTube channel in your mind exist as its own entity? Like if you stop doing game development tomorrow for whatever reason, would the YouTube channel continue?
Do you mean game development in with the intent to release a game?
Yeah. If you decided for whatever reason, maybe you release the game and it does banger numbers and you never have to work again, or maybe like I don't know, a genie comes along and says if you ever release a game, we're gonna chop your leg off or something. I don't know. Like for whatever reason, you decide to stop making games, stop trying to release a game. You can still open Unity and dick around or whatever, but you can't release a game. Would the YouTube channel continue being its own thing, or does the YouTube channel go hand in hand with the game development?
I think it kind of goes hand in hand. I think mostly, I think as a viewer, I feel like I don't care if I know that everything that you do is not going to be turned into I'm never going to be able to play it. At least from like the game development perspective, there's lots of like, channels that do really well that are like game dev adjacent, that are like, oh, I made this game in Minecraft, right? It's like sort of game dev, but it's like inside of Minecraft. And I think that those work, but I think in terms of like actual game development of making a game, I think it could probably work if you never release something. But I just think for me personally, there's always sort of that like is exciting, like, oh, people want to play this game and they want to try it out. And I think that that's really it's why I started it, was to market actual games. And I do think as a part of game development is like, yeah, it's fun. Like let people enjoy this thing. Like a video can be fun and it's its own sort of type of content. It's its own sort of type of media that can be enjoyed. And then that is a totally different experience than what people get when they play a game. I do know that a good game doesn't necessarily mean a good video, and vice versa. A good video doesn't necessarily mean a good game. So, yeah, they're completely different kinds of media, even though in my case, they're sort of shared. But I think that makes it exciting for both.
I think. Sorry, I've got a duplicate question here. Do you struggle to balance your time between content creation and game development? We kind of had that one already. It was just worded differently. Do you ever find yourself frustrated that you have to take time away from one to do the other? So, like, I feel like you've already answered this one. This is basically what you were saying before about you struggle sometimes to switch between one and the other. I think the implication there is that you're in one mode and you're kind of reluctant to leave that mode to do the other thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like I do feel sometimes when I'm like in a flow, I want to just be there. I feel that way with basically everything. It's like if you're on the middle of working on something and then something comes up and you suddenly have to stop, but you're like in the middle of a train of thought. I feel this more in game development than anything else because it's so like when you're coding or something and you're in the middle of solving a problem and you have to all of a sudden stop, that it's like, I feel like I'm getting close to stop fixing this and now I have to stop. So I think that's really the pull there.
And also
like,
it can take some
like I'm so close. Well. What?
No, it's also it can take some time to get going again once you've stopped.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever that's called, like the task switching, whatever.
I'm going to pull that question out. Actually, you're the first one out of the people on this video that I've interviewed, so you're the guinea pig for these questions. It's basically a duplicate question.
Guinea horse.
Yeah. How much, if at all, do you find that content creation and game development create a kind of feedback loop of audience growth? So, like, you get people interested in the YouTube channel, go check out the game, and people see the game and go, "Oh, I'll go check out his YouTube channel," and they feed each other. Is that a thing that happens, or if it does happen, does it happen to a big extent? Or
I think so. Sorry, my dog is barking.
It's fine.
The only thing that I've only released one game that is like directly related to the channel, and I didn't find that anyone who played the game even knew about my YouTube channel. Like there may have been a handful of people that watched my video on it and then played the game, but I feel like mostly there was a lot of people that like the algorithm just like served the game to and they played the game and had no idea that I was even a content creator. So that's one thing that was sort of like I don't know if it was an aha moment, but it was like this whole time I've been thinking YouTube is the marketing strategy, right? It's like YouTube is the thing. But really like Steam is a huge platform too that has its own algorithm. And so I do think that there's probably like more driving traffic between both that could happen, that I just haven't really tapped into.
Okay. Sorry, I've lost my place. I'm great at this. If you were starting from scratch and you could choose only one potential method of funding your game development, whether it's like content creation, going with a publisher, crowdfunding, I actually can't think of any other ways off the top of my head for an indie developer to fund their game. But if you could go with any of the potential ways of funding your game, let's say that lottery winning isn't an option, what would you go with? Assuming that whatever way it is would definitely work. Like if you could snap your fingers and you get a publisher to fund your game, or you could snap your fingers and you're instantly a content creator that's making enough money to fund your game, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's a difficult question. It's like, which one do I like more?
Yeah, basically. I mean, the thing I'm aiming for with this video is to make a case, or not make a case, however it turns out, that content creation is a good partner for an indie game developer. But if it ends up not being a good partner after I speak to all these people who are doing it, then, you know, that's going to change the case of the video. So if you turn around and say you'd rather have got a publisher if you had the option, that's obviously going to affect the outcome of the video.
Well, I think if we're saying, so there's a third option that would make it more difficult to answer. But I haven't seen that's if it was me solo publishing versus content creation, that would be a harder pick. If it's me having a publisher versus being a content creator, then I would pick being a content creator. The difference there is that having a publisher means that I have a boss that is dictating. What?
No, sorry, somebody rang the doorbell. The doorbell went off behind me, and now my dog's barking. Don't worry, your audio's isolated, so I should be able to cut it out of the actual video. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so having a publisher would mean that I sort of all of a sudden have a boss that is sort of dictating to me how the game needs to be. Is at least that's my perspective of it. It's never really just, hey, we're going to give you this money and hopefully we make our return back. So in that regard, I think content creation would be my pick. But if I was solo developing, I don't know. That's a hard thing. I think maybe game dev. And the reason for that is that I think it's just more dynamic of a medium that I could keep doing for a long time. You can do small games, you can do big games. It's interactive. It involves a lot of the things that YouTube has. And yeah, I think that would be it.
Okay. I think we've only got two left. So this one's open-ended, so apply whatever caveats or no caveats that you want to it. Should someone become an indie game developer? Like you can just say yes or no, or you can say yes if or no. You know, however you want to answer this question, like in as much detail or not. Should someone become an indie game developer? And we actually, this was already in here. Like this wasn't put in here after what you were speaking to me earlier on about. So.
Yeah. So I just had a conversation with a guy. Well, it was a DM, but I had a DM with a guy this morning who sort of asked me this question. And I think my answer is that if you're doing it for money, that maybe you shouldn't. But if you are passionate about making games, that there's really nothing anybody could do to make you think otherwise. Right. Like if you're passionate about something, you're going to do it, whether it makes you money or not. And I feel like game development is really that's where you should be. Because there's so much variability. You could be the next Minecraft or Balatro or whatever, but, there's also a high probability that you won't be. So I think you have to sort of find where you exist among that and be okay with it not working out, be okay with potentially having to find work while you work on your games. If it comes to that, but if you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So I've only got one left and it's a short one. So it's like a final question. If you can only give one short piece of advice, so like, I don't know, a single sentence or something to somebody who wants to do this, who wants to be a content creator / indie game developer like you are, like what would that advice be? It's got to be brief though. This is like for a kind of a montagey clip at the end of the video.
I want it to be really impactful if it's going to be like in a montage, but
the plan is there's going to be a bit at the end where the answer to this question from all of the people I'm interviewing is kind of spliced together. So say somebody's decided they're definitely going to go down this path. They're going to make games. They're going to be a content creator to help fund and market the games. For whatever their motives are, they've already decided that's definitely what they're going to do. What would your one short piece of advice be? Maybe I should send this question out in advance for everyone else.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe not, because now I'm going to look stupid.
I'm not just going to leave like 5 minutes of silence while you think about the question in the video. Don't worry.
Okay, I think I have something. I would say, above all else, follow the fun. So whatever is fun, whatever your playtesters think is fun, whatever you find fun in the game, follow that. Regardless of any design document or whatever, just keep following that, and I think you'll find success in your games.
Nice. It was good. It was worth the wait. That was it.
The video game industry is currently the most lucrative entertainment market, and it's not even close. The independent video game industry alone is worth around $5 billion, and is expected to double over the next 5 years.
There's just like all this insane shit over the last like 5-6 years. I don't know, dude. My life's completely different now. It's a completely different time.
And I was always interested in games. I just never really thought that I could do it. I didn't think I was smart enough. I thought it would be too competitive for me to get into.
There was a lot of those conversations, and me and the co-dev that was working on Sandbells, we realized very quickly, like, oh, like we don't have this money. So
I used to kind of like try and troll them back, kind of, or you know, just give them just bad information and try and play with them a little bit. But I found that is actually detrimental.
Instantly, like I think the first day I streamed game development, 2 people came into my chat and they were like, "Shut the hell up, you stupid B word! You're not a real coder. Go make me a sandwich." And I was like, "Bruh."
It's possible that it's a possibility that it exists, and there is a chance, but it's like winning the lottery when we talk about those kind of games.
It does take a toll a little bit on your ego when you have to hear that over and over again. Like,
You're probably just using the whole "I make games for me" thing as an excuse to avoid having to face the prospect of failing. So maybe you should stop fannying about and get on with it, Beaks.